Okay, I got it that time. It's still a little bit wonky. God damn it. I'm trying my best. Okay, there we go. That's perfect. It would help if I had a real, like, camera stand or whatever, but I don't. The doodad I have is surprisingly useful, but it is not perfect. Um, anyway, so tonight for dinner, I am making some Cajun shrimp Alfredo pasta, uh, which, as the name implies, is fucking amazing. Um, let me just get everything set up here on my laptop, and then we can get going. As usual, I'm a few minutes behind, um, but that's okay. Let's put that right there. Ugh. I hope everybody is having a good day. I know that I personally am having a great time, seeing as Trump officially lost the election. Obviously, there's still a lot of work to do, making the United States not absolute garbage, but this is the wrong account. But at least we are finally, like, getting somewhere with that. Come on, laptop. If I ever get more than 10 followers on this, I am gonna start a Patreon so that I can buy myself some better stuff. Though I haven't a clue, like, what I would offer on the different tiers of a Patreon. For the love of fuck, come on. There we go. Excellent. Alright, that's muted. I've got some music. Perfect. Alright, so now I can actually start cooking. There we go. Oh yeah, it's Saturday. I hope everybody's. I mean, I already said I hope everybody's having a good week, a good day. What with the election announcement, but I also just hope that everybody's having a good weekend in general. I hope you live someplace where people are just as excited as you are about the election. And as I said, obviously, there's still plenty of work that needs to get done, but we are allowed to be grateful that things are getting better, even if it's just a little bit. So this is my Dutch oven. It's one of my favorite things that I own. First thing we gotta do is cook the shrimpies. So I'm gonna put a little bit of olive oil down here. I'm gonna wait for that to heat up. I'm gonna be a little bit extra decadent and also put some butter in here. This butter is amazing. Not even a whole tablespoon, just a little bit. I'm gonna leave that out because I'll probably use it some more later. And now we just gotta wait for all of this to get nice and hot and melty. And I'll also get out another bowl in which to put the cooked shrimpies. It's already starting to bubble a little bit. I'm going to turn it down a skosh. Butter burns really easily, a lot like garlic, because of the milk fat in the butter, which is why you can't like deep fry something in butter. But just a little bit of butter added to something makes a lot of difference. So this is my shrimpies. Whenever I buy shrimp, I always get the frozen kind that's already been shelled and deveined because I hate doing that. This amount of shrimp that I got from a bag from Target said that it was deveined, and yet I still had to devein every single one of these shrimpies. The reason that you need to devein your shrimps is because it's not just like a regular person vein, it's not just blood. That vein is actually part of the shrimp's digestive system. So if you don't take that vein out, then you're probably going to be eating some shrimp poop. And nobody wants that. So always devein your shrimpies, even though it's a big old pain in the ass. And then once I did that, I dried them off with a paper towel as best I could. And tossed them in some Cajun seasoning. That way it would like kind of marinate. And now we are just gonna drop some shrimpies here in this pan. Shrimp cook really quickly, and you don't want them to overcook because they get kind of rubbery. So what I'm gonna do is put them in here just a few at a time. That way I can flip them over once they're done and then move them into the prepared bowl I have for them to wait in. I only get to cook shrimp while my husband's not home because he's Jewish. And I dearly love shrimp and other non-kosher food. And he would never, like, if I told him, like, hey, I super need to make some shrimp, like, right now, he would not be offended, but I always feel bad if I cook stuff while he's home that he can't have. Because even though he knows he can't have it, it still is going to smell pretty great. And I feel bad. Everybody deserves delicious food. That being said, cooking kosher really isn't that hard. Sometimes it's obnoxious because, like, I want the shrimpies or, like, pork. But, whenever people learn that I don't make it, like, cook pork in the house most of the time, they're always like, oh no, that means you can't have any bacon. But bacon is really, like, not the thing I miss the most. It's just bacon. It's not special. Here I am crushing some garlic while the shrimpies are doing their thing. God, they already smell so good. Cajun seasoning is just the best. I'm currently living in the South. I'm not from the South. So, like, I know that nothing that I make is going to be, like, as good or authentic as, like, real Cajun cooking. But it's just so tasty. And I just use, like, a Cajun seasoning mix that I get at the grocery store. There we go. Okay. Let those go for another couple of minutes. There we go. Alright. That is 4 cloves of garlic. Oh shit, I dropped one. Ooh, that is right next to the flame. Alright, let's put that guy right here. And the other thing about cooking meat is that once you pull it off the heat, it's going to keep cooking for a little while, just with the residual heat. Which is part of why, when you cook like steak or whatever, you want to pull it just a little bit before it's at the like actual temperature that it needs to be at, because it'll keep cooking. And if you don't pull it before it reaches that temperature, then it will overcook and you will be sad. Personally, I don't cook a lot of like steaks or whatever because like I'm just not, I know technically like the meat is safe as long as it has reached the correct temperature. As long as it's generally uncomfortable with meat that's still like super bloody looking. Logically, I know it's safe, but it just kind of grosses me out. I'm only going to use a quarter of this onion. I'm going to chop it as finely as I can. If I felt like being extra, I might even put it through like a food processor or something. But I do not feel like being that extra. Like I've said every time, leave the root intact, that way it holds it all together while you're chopping it. And then you just don't cut all the way through. Leave that root intact. And then when you're doing a quarter, you go on it that's lengthwise, and then you flip it onto the other side and you go lengthwise again. And then you can start slicing it from the end, and you get nice little bits. I should flip these. Oh, it looks so good. I'm so excited about this pasta. It's one of the things that I make like, it's pretty rich, it's pretty heavy, so I don't make it, I usually only make it once while my husband is deployed. Because it's a traditional Alfredo, so it's going to be made with heavy cream. Heavy cream, just the heavy cream and the butter and all the good shit. It's really heavy. Make it once. And then since I'm the only person home, I am going to be sharing the leftovers with my friends because I am not a heathen. And sharing is caring. I end up giving away so much food and so many baked goods because I love cooking. But for approximately 6 months a year, I am the only person home. So like my friends and my old coworkers, I just show up at the Starbucks I used to work at like, hey guys, I made some cinnamon rolls. Excellent. These guys. My water is going to start boiling soon, but I don't want to drop the pasta in until I have the sauce happening in here, since we're making a traditional Alfredo, which means we have to turn the heat down and wait for the heavy cream to there we go, to reduce. Go. Got some more butter in that and scrape up all the good bits off the bottom of the pan. I guess it's a mostly traditional Alfredo. I don't think traditional Alfredo has like onions in it, but that's fine. Drop the onions in. But again, that's why we're only using a quarter of an onion. We want the flavor. We just don't want it to be overwhelmingly oniony. to add when you want vegetables to cook down because it draws out the liquid. Not too much, just a bit. And then we're going to let that happen for a little while. I'm going to go investigate my pantry really quick because I bet just a little bit of white wine on the bottom of this would get us back to that good fond. So I'll be right back. Okay. Getting up all the good bits from the bottom of the pan. What I think I am going to do is add just a little splash of water to this so that I can actually get the rest of those good bits. Excuse me. There we go. That's what I want to see. I should have thought ahead and gotten some white cooking wine, but I did not. There we go. See, just a little splash is all you need. And that will also help soften up this onion even better. And again, I'm using my garlic crusher because I hate chopping garlic. It's just such a pain. Garlic is just so small. Oh, this smells so good. Make sure you get all the bits. It's a little bit too hot to touch. Ah, here we are. I'm going to show you what this pan looks like. See? Delicious onion bits. Those onions look pretty soft and translucent, and it smells super good. So now what we're going to do is add the heavy cream. So when I was in high school, I took a cooking class, and they taught us to make Alfredo by making a bechamel, which is when you add an equal part of butter and flour to a pan, and then let kind of the flour smell cook off, and then you pour in your dairy milk of choice, and you like slowly whisk it in, and then the flour butter mixture will slowly thicken up your milk mixture. But apparently that's not actually the traditional way to make Alfredo sauce. The traditional way is to just take heavy cream and let it cook down for a while till it's thick enough to like coat the back of a spoon, and then you add in some Parmesan, and then you have a sauce. So I have turned down the heat so that it's really low, and we are just gonna slowly whisk this in so that it gets up any residual good bits. All that water, that little bit of water that I poured in earlier, already cooked off, so there's already, like, it already got most of the good bits up off the bottom of the pan. And I learned from binging with Babish that pouring this kind of thing in really slowly is important because it just helps the emulsification process a little bit better, so that like it doesn't break, which means that all the fat separates out from all the other stuff, and then you're sad. I don't have a measurement for how much heavy cream I'm supposed to be pouring into this. I'm just gonna keep going until it looks right, or until I run out of milk, I guess. I'm gonna do, since this is gonna cook down, I'm gonna pour a bit more in. That should be good. All right. Let's go some more. All right. So, got the heavy cream in there. It has been pretty well mixed in. It's on low so that it doesn't scorch. Back. And the water is boiling for the pasta. So we're going to take that lid off. Friendly reminder to always salt your pasta water. It is difficult to over salt your pasta water because like the pasta's only going to be in there for like 10 minutes or whatever. So that's not really a lot of time for the pasta to soak up the flavor. But it's important because the little bit of flavor that it does pick up is really important. And if you're not using your pasta water in your sauce, you are making your sauce wrong. It's another thing that helps emulsify it a lot because of the starches that are in the pasta water from the pasta. The salt you added to the water oomps up the salt flavor, oomps up the flavor of your sauce. Like, it's just generally important. And this is already starting to get a little bit steamy. Let me nestle this down in here. There we go. All right. And this is supposed to cook for 11 to 12 minutes. I'm gonna set a timer for 9 minutes. That way we know it's still pretty al dente, and then it can finish cooking in the sauce, which will have it develop even more flavor. Now, it's time for me to grate the cheese. I like this cheese grater because it came with this nice little doodad that holds all of your cheese that you've grated. Let me throw this stuff away. I really need to set up the compost bin. And make sure you're paying attention to your heavy cream because you don't want it to scald, because that would ruin everything. Like I said in my mac and cheese video, when you are making something with melted cheese, it is important to grate your own cheese, because most of the pre-grated cheese you're going to find in the grocery store is going to be coated with something like a cornstarch or whatever that makes it so it doesn't stick together in the bag, but that also makes it so that when you mix it into something for melting purposes, it just doesn't melt quite right. And then you're sad. So, grate your own cheese when you can. Probably, that is almost definitely more than enough. I really like these reusable bags I got from Target. They're definitely a little bit expensive, but since it means I'm using less plastic bags, it's going to save me more money over time. Oh yeah, that's some good cheese. All right, and I'm gonna add one more very non-traditional thing to this Alfredo, and that is that in just a moment I'm gonna start chopping up some spinach. That way I have some fresh chopped spinach in here, which isn't really doing much for the flavor of the dish, but it is giving it a nice little splash of color and also putting some vegetables into this very heavy dish. So that, like, I still would not describe it as healthy, but at least now it has some spinach in it. And I would say spinach makes stuff, like the stuff that you add it to, at least 10% healthier. You could also technically add it whole, but I do not like the mouthfeel of getting a whole wilted leaf in my mouth. So whenever I'm adding spinach to something that does not necessarily need spinach added, I chop it up first. See? Pile of spinach. And then you just kind of stack it up so it's just a big pile of leaves. There we go. It's like spinach confetti. This is definitely starting to thicken up a little bit, but it still has a ways to go. Now, the pasta is probably going to be done cooking before the sauce is ready. And so what I'm going to do is dump it in the strainer and then just let it sit there until I'm ready for it. Don't rinse it off because there are delicious starches on the outside, or some delicious starches on the pasta that you want it to have when you put it into the sauce. It's so disappointing to me when I don't get anybody watching, especially when it's something like this that doesn't take very long to cook. And like by the time somebody jumps in, it's gonna be basically done. But that's okay. I'll upload it to YouTube and then someday somebody will watch it. So once I decide this is thick enough, I'm gonna put the cheese in, and then I'll put the spinach in. That way the spinach has a chance to wilt a little bit. Grab my spoon so that I can taste test it. It's definitely thickening up. I'm very excited. I also need to grab something to scoop out some pasta water with. Because like I said, you want to save some pasta water. Especially once I get the cheese in this, it's going to thicken up significantly. So adding some pasta water is important for loosening up the sauce a little bit so that it will coat all the noodles better. I would say it's important for a pasta sauce. Like, it's kind of like how if you're coloring something, if you color it too light, you can always make it darker. But if you make something too dark, you can't really make it lighter again. Like, you can make a sauce too thick, and then you can add your pasta water to it to loosen it up. But if you make it too loose, it's difficult to thicken it up to the right consistency without adding like flour or cornstarch to it, which might not make it the consistency that you want. Instead, you just want to be patient with your sauce and let it do what it's going to do on its own time. Like, this is definitely getting there. It's still not quite the like coat the back of the spoon consistency that we want. And the timer for the noodles are about to go off, so I need to test one and make sure they are the right texture. Perfect. I would say that maybe I oversalted that water a little bit. I almost didn't save my pasta water. Did you see that? Pasta water. Right there. Drain these nudes. And the sauce is looking pretty nice. And it coats the back of the spoon. I'm not going to add any salt to it because the pasta water and the pasta itself is going to be pretty salty, as well as the Parmesan. But what I am going to do is add some more pepper to it and just a little bit of this Cajun seasoning. Excellent. And then we're going to start adding some cheese. And you want to add a little bit at a time and let it melt. That way it doesn't clump up and ruin everything. This is almost definitely more than enough cheese. I don't want to say it would be too much cheese, because that is another difficult thing to achieve. But you know, you just want to be careful. I'm going to save the rest of that to sprinkle on top. And then once that gets nice and melty, I'm going to add the spinach and the shrimpies back in. Ooh, yeah, see, that might have been a little bit too much cheese. So I'm going to pour in some of this pasta water to loosen it up. Beautiful. Add in these leaves. I like to wait for the leaves to start wilting just a little bit. And I'm going to dump all the shrimp with a little bit of shrimp juice back in there. And then we're going to switch from the whisk back to this. Oh, it looks so good, you guys. Delicious shrimpies. You can't see very well. That's okay. Let me go ahead and taste test this. Excellent. Now we will put this pasta in. Turn the heat up just a little bit. And then we're gonna just mix this around until all of the pasta is well coated in the sauce. I'm gonna add a little bit more cheese to help bind it. I'm so excited to eat this. Excellent. All right. Yet again, let me show you how this looks now that it's not a sauce that will slop out of the pot. There we go. Ouch. So as you can see, this is way more than enough for one person. I will probably get a good, like, between 4 and 6 servings out of this. I'll probably save like 2 for me and then give the rest away to one of my friends. I will post this video on YouTube, and if you would like the actual recipe, go ahead and comment. I would love to hear from anybody. Let me plate some of this up and I'll show it off a little bit better. The biggest problem with cooking with long noodles is that it's difficult to actually get whatever bits you want to put it in to like mix in properly. So. Anyway, here is my Cajun Alfredo shrimp pasta. Like and subscribe, I guess, and let me know if you want the recipe for this, and if you like wanna like give me suggestions for stuff you'd like to see me cook. Thanks for joining me.